Okay, so I wanted to make a video about a topic that I've just been thinking a lot about lately because of my situation with friends and family who don't really understand the that I have um, with Lyme and biotoxin illness. And I was talking to a friend about how we wear different hats as a Lyme patient or anybody who's chronically ill. I think what is interesting about and what sets Lyme apart, or Lyme-related illnesses, biotoxin illnesses, and that kind of thing, apart from other diseases that are more well known, is that we don't get the recognition that we deserve. We don't get the compassion. We don't get the same sort of understanding that people have if they have cancer or MS or you know any of these other kind of diseases. And it's really hard. I think people who see us, those of us who are ill every day, like our family, they understand that there's something wrong. If you don't act the way you used to, you don't seem to do things the way you used to, your personality is different. Things that used to give you joy now they're impossible to do. So I think people who see you on a daily basis, I think they can get a clue. But in particular, I was talking about friends. And it's really hard when you start getting sick, especially when you're a young person. And for myself, I was in college when I got sick with Lyme. And, I just slowly started fading out of the social scene. My friends sort of, you know, um, they were concerned. And then as time went on, they just got less and less involved. And I think something that happens often is that people who are healthy don't want to be, they don't want to hear about people who are sick. They don't know they don't know how to deal with it, one, or two, they just don't want to bring themselves down because of it. And I don't know if you should blame these people for being this way. I mean, if you weren't chronically ill, how do you think you would treat somebody who was sick that you had no idea about their illness? So I guess my goal of making this video is to try to explain to people who don't understand what it means to have a chronic illness, not only Lyme, but any chronic illness, heart disease, cancer, Alzheimer's, anything like that. I mean, they're often invisible, and you would never know that somebody has a condition. And I think in particular with Lyme and Lyme-related illness, it's hard because you play the patient. So you're the sick person, and you've got to worry about getting well. That's your main priority, as it should be. But there are many other things that come along with that. The following thing, I mean, after getting diagnosed, which some people are fortunate enough to getting a diagnosis right away, but many they don't, and they take years. And like myself, seeing dozens of doctors before I figured out what was going on with me, and that's kind of still up in the air at this point. But it brings you to become a researcher, and you have to research because these illnesses are not well known. They're not mainstream in terms of what doctors are taught. So you become a researcher, and it's kind of counterintuitive to have a sick person being a researcher. But that's what you have to do. You become so desperate that you get on the internet, you call people, you read things to try to figure out what might be going on with you. So now you're a patient, you're a researcher, and now you're going through treatment, if you're lucky. And now you have to be a caregiver because a lot of times, and for a lot of people, they don't get the treatment and recognition they need, or the compassion and understanding because you look well. You might look different to the people who know you, who are familiar with seeing you on a day in and day out basis, but a lot of people look well, and so you don't get that recognition of what you look like a sick person. So a lot of times you become the caregiver. I know in my case, I don't have anybody to cook my food. I don't have anybody to help me clean. I don't have anybody to go make sure I have the supplements that I need. I don't have anybody making sure that I'm taking my supplements, that I'm following my protocol. I don't have anybody when I'm I'm so sick that I feel like I could die and nobody is around. I mean, I have family and they're a phone call away and they could be here, within 30 minutes if I needed them. But the thing is, they don't know what to do. They wouldn't know what to do even if they did come. And so you're stuck being a caregiver for yourself. And it's sort of a vicious cycle because as the patient, you just want to get well. As the researcher, you're stuck trying to decide what is going on in your body. So you end up playing the doctor because you have to figure out what's working for you and what's not. With Lyme and these illnesses, things change so rapidly and so quickly that you can't call your doctor every time something happens, and you end up making these decisions on your own because the treatments and protocols are so varied and everybody's different. You can't ask one person what they did for this problem and expect that it will always apply to you. I think a lot of people get lost in that, and I've had it happen to myself. So you play the patient, the researcher, the caregiver, the doctor, and the next thing is you become an advocate. People look at you and think that you're overreacting. They don't get that what's going on in your body is a war, it's a battle going on all the time, and you're fighting. We're warriors fighting to survive on a daily basis. And we're advocating our cause. We're trying to get out there and explain to people, even if it's just our friends and family, that, hey, this is a disease that you need to be aware about because it doesn't discriminate and it can happen to you. And there's nothing that's keeping it from... I didn't even know I got bit by a tick. I wouldn't say that I was outdoors any more than, anybody else. I wasn't really a hunter or an avid outdoors person. And look, I got Lyme disease, and I never knew it. So you can't really sit there and say you're going to protect yourself from something that you don't even know is a threat, if you don't even know how to protect yourself. So we become advocates, and then people look at that and say, well, this person must just be kind of crazy. They're a hypochondriac. They're just kind of taken away by this whole illness, and it's not really as bad as they say it is. And they just don't take you seriously. And the case is, that's absolutely not true. We're all regular people, and I was a successful college student working at a Fortune 500 company, getting great grades, on my way to a full-time job, and bam, I got hit with Lyme, mold illness, and it doesn't discriminate against anybody. And so, as somebody who doesn't know about these illnesses, don't have a false sense of security that it can't happen to you. You don't have to have a compromised immune system to get this. You don't have to be an outdoors person. It can just happen to you. So we're playing the patient, the researcher, the caregiver, the doctor, and the advocate. And a lot of people end up being the one who is financially responsible for their treatment. So now they're the provider. And it's contradictory in that the sick person is a provider. If you can't work, like myself, how are you supposed to provide? Fortunately, I have, resources, my parents who are helping me, but there are a lot of people out there who have families and they get sick and they can't support themselves. What are they supposed to do? When insurance companies won't pay for treatments, and a lot of the treatments out there that actually work are considered alternative and they're not covered by insurance in the first place. And all of these things are like weighting you down as a Lyme patient and a chronically ill person. It's almost like the system is set up to keep people sick because these illnesses are invisible, and mainstream medicine can put all of this money into Alzheimer's research, fibromyalgia research, multiple sclerosis research, cancer research. The money is there, and in a lot of cases you look at conditions like MS and autism and fibromyalgia, and new research is coming out all the time showing links between spirochetal diseases like Lyme and these other conditions. Can you imagine if a tenth of the money that was spent on research for those diseases were put into tick-borne illnesses? How much things would change, and what people would understand, and the level of compassion and understanding and caring and financial support that people would receive. So I think things are changing, and that's good. People are getting the word out there, and that's kind of my goal, is to, to say to people who, you might look at me and say, well, you can talk and you can sit there and have a conversation, but my brain feels like every thought is like lifting like a weight, like a physical curl, like you're curling something, but it's like fogged, and it's so hard, and yet nobody sees it and nobody knows. And from the minute I wake up in the morning until the minute I go to sleep at night, I'm dealing with it. I deal with it during sleep all night long. It's something that doesn't go away. So as a patient, as a caregiver, as an advocate, as a doctor, and as a financial provider, we have a lot on our plates as chronically ill people. And I think it is something that once you go through, you never look at people the same again. And it's hard to be humble when you know that when people are complaining about how hard their lives are, when they've got their fully functioning body and their fully functioning brains, you just want to say to them, you don't have any idea what it's like to live on a daily basis without that, to feel like you're barely above water. But I think it does make you much wiser, much more compassionate to go through this. At least that's been my experience. And I just hope that people will start to recognize these illnesses for what they are, because it's time. They're real. Young people all over the world and the country are getting these illnesses, and we're not crazy. We're just normal, regular young people getting sick. And not only young people, but old people as well, and people in between. It's just, there's no way there's that many hypochondriacs out there making a bunch of noise for no reason. And so I just ask any of you who have somebody in your lives who is chronically ill, if you're a friend or a family member or spouse or boyfriend or girlfriend, whatever, I just ask you to look at that person, and if you've known them for a while, think as hard as you can about how they were before they got sick. Think about the things that made them unique, their personality, their ambition, what drove them to be the way that they were, their sense of humor, their intelligence, their wit, all of it, and think about how they are now. Think about what's changed in that since they got sick, and know that those are subtle signs that show what's going on with people. You may not pick up on it immediately, but you watch somebody who's sick. If you were to sit and watch a sick person on a daily basis, you would see, they might go out and go to the store because they have no food and they need to go get something. And you'll say, well, they must be 100% because they can get in a car, or they can have somebody take them to the store, whatever. But what you don't see is when we get home, we crash. And people don't see that. And so they assume you're either well or you're not well. And this is like living in some sort of parallel universe where you can function, but you're suffering every minute of the day. And we can't always be 100% in it. Sometimes you're 50% in, sometimes you're 10% in. The thing is, we fight and we do it. So take that into consideration next time you think about a chronically ill person and what they're going through. At least just think for a second what they must be going through, even if you can't understand it yourself, because it's tough. And my message is, watch these people, listen when we say that something's wrong, and just believe us. And think about how you would cope in such a situation as we're in. So I hope this reaches a few people, changes a few people's minds about things, and talk to you guys soon.